All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Conservation, Sustainability, and Green Initiatives Committee for March 29th, 2022. First order of business is to approve the, oh wait, let's take roll. Rebecca, can you take roll?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reinhardt,
Yep, here.
Epicoro,
Present.
Camiso, Fine,
Here.
Lockhart,
Here.
Miller,
Present.
Plotsky, Simpson,
Present.
and Pearlie.
Here.
7 present, Mr. Chairman.
Is Frank on the line?
Yes, I just got on.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw it, but I didn't hear him respond. Okay, so the first order of business is to approve the previous meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Any questions, or if not, let's have a motion.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next item is the local law M for 2021, local law concerning the cutting, replacing, and preservation of forest lands by county authorities. And Jeff, I think we can bunch this in with the second item as well, which is the public hearing. And my understanding is you want to table these motions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if we could, and for the benefit of the other members of the committee, just a brief update. We did meet with yourself, myself, our respective councils, and I think we came up with a good alternative approach going forward, which would be to substitute a county policy for the local law. And I think my understanding is that that's going to go to the next legislative exchange, and the substitution will be before us as a committee at our next meeting. So pending that, the introduction of that substitution, I would like to table local law M in the interim.
Okay, one other point I want to add is at that previous meeting that Jeff just referenced, Jeff and I discussed reaching out to our respective members on this committee to see if they were interested in being a co-sponsor of the new resolution. And so Rebecca, can you send out the draft to all the members, and then we can get a response? Because I don't know that they've all seen it yet.
I don't believe they have. I will as soon as
Right.
the meeting.
Okay. So the next item is current business. And the first is the public hearing for the proposed local law number A for 2022, local law for the County of Albany establishing the Sustainable Technology and Green Energy Act, or the STAGE Act. So I guess, Kevin, you can start your song and dance now.
Do we want to give the sponsor first?
Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll go. Thank you, Bill. Before we get into the STAGE Act, I wanted to thank Mr. Pearlie for working, with Majority Council and our council on a good solution here and a compromise. It's going to best serve the county, and when that resolution comes out, I'll be looking forward to co-sponsoring it. Local laws are not easy, and there's a lot of good ideas out there, a good perspective, but oftentimes we come up against issues and problems, but compromises and best ideas are good to come by, and we appreciate your flexibility and working with us on that to a good resolution for everybody. So good job, Mr. Pearlie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our pleasure. It's good to work with you, and it's for the best interest. And again, I'll be looking forward to co-sponsoring that, and I appreciate Mr. Collins and Ms. Kennedy and Mr. Russell and Minority Council for working with us on that. For the STAGE Act, I'm sure Mr. O'Connor will have some comments too. And what we're trying to do is establish, a framework, a legal framework to make Albany County, exceptionally competitive as it relates to green energy and renewable energy, economic development processes and plans going forward. It's a public hearing and through the local law, and I hope everyone be favorable and supporting that tonight as we, make Albany County exceptionally competitive, in that regard, and moving forward with green energy and renewable energy jobs and economic development framework.
All right, Andrew, is that you done?
I am done, Bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
By the way, Andrew, if you did have your hand up, I'm sorry I didn't see it.
I
Okay,
did.
now, Kevin, do you have anything you want to add? Or for that matter, Luke, either one.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Sure, I'll chime in and Luke can add what I wind up forgetting, which is usually a bit. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would first of all just echo Chairman Joyce's comments here. I think this bill has the opportunity to put Albany County at the forefront of sustainable energy and certainly keep us in keeping with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. The state set a goal where we're trying to get, as much as up to 70% of our energy derived from alternative sources by 2030. And I have a very firm belief, and it's kind of proven out with some of our recent projects, that economic development does not have to be at odds with environmental protection and climate protection. And this bill, I think, will give us a tremendous edge up. We'll develop a plan working with people in the county executive's office, our budget director, Dave Riley, controller, and others, and submit it to the legislature for their input, and use it as a guide to finance sustainable energy and green technology companies throughout the county. I think this would make Albany County at the forefront of green economic development. And I just think there's a really unique opportunity. And, just with plug power and with the offshore wind alone, we will be creating thousands of jobs over the next 10, 15 years in this sector. And I think there's opportunities for battery technology, solar, other types of alternative energies and green technologies, and the whole supplier network that could supply those companies. It's something that works on both sides. That they tend to be high-paying jobs, not all of which require college degrees. They and support the climate change initiatives that the state and the federal government have articulated. So under this bill here, what we would do, I would be in charge of putting a plan together and submitting it to the county legislature, along with a series of rules and regulations by January 1st of 2023. So you have that as consideration as if and when you decide you want to appropriate any money for these. And again, I think this is a major step, a very bold step for Albany County to take in stimulating in our economy while protecting our environment at the same time. Luke, anything you'd add to that?
Just to echo the scale of the opportunity, I mean, in offshore wind alone, the state just released their third solicitation. These occur every 2 years. That's third of at least 7, I believe. So we have the next 5 to 8 years where you're going to continue to have growth opportunities in the offshore wind industry and the associated supply chain. But we're also talking to some really innovative small companies that are spinning out of our local universities, companies that, UAlbany has a great sort of emerging climate tech ecosystem. Obviously, RPI has a lot going on as well. And there's some overlap with nanotech. Some of these nano focused companies, a lot of the work they're doing is about reducing energy use in our, all of the technology that we use on a daily basis, whether it's our phones or our vehicles. So a lot of promise. We've already seen some, job commitments and expansion through some of the marquee projects, but it really can only grow.
I want to add one thing here for all the members to understand, and also for Kevin to think about. That is, Luke mentioned energy efficiency in his remarks just now, but I think that what we want to make sure is we don't undersee the opportunities around energy efficiency in all of our existing infrastructure, whether that's buildings, transportation, et cetera. And sometimes, and I think here's the challenge for the stage program to think about. Sometimes the energy efficiency industry, it's not a new industry like the offshore wind industry. It's your heating contractors and your plumbers and all of the people who have been doing work in buildings for a long time, but now there are new technologies coming along. So by electrifying buildings, you're replacing boilers and furnaces with heat pumps. And the installers are part of that clean industry now. That's how you're going green in your buildings. So we want to make sure that somehow we don't forget about the existing businesses that we're basically, like I'm involved with through my Solarize Albany work with the Heat Smart campaign in the Capital District. We're working with existing HVAC contractors to kind of move them more into the heat pump activities as opposed to where they might have traditionally been doing old boilers and furnaces. So we can't forget about the existing businesses who want to become greener and kind of launch in new directions. Somehow I think we need to think that through, how we're going to address that. But energy efficiency, we often think of it as not a new energy supply, but it really is. If you think about it, it's the biggest single source of new energy is to be more efficient.
It's a great point. It's something that the definition of green energy company in the law is fairly broad for that reason. So companies like that could be included, but you're spot on in terms of the energy efficiency piece needed to meet the state's very aggressive goals is a huge component of that. So it is definitely something to, the transition of our old building stock to cleaner heating and cooling is something we're all going to be wrestling with over the next decade.
Yeah. So do any members of the committee have any questions that they want to ask either? Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, so I want to take a second on this one and be sort of cautious in that if anyone knows me, you think I'd be jumping all over this bill. And I support obviously the general overall concept, but taking Bill's concept about existing businesses and what Lucas actually just said right at the end regarding definition 3H in this, it is very broad. And for that, I actually have a little bit of an issue. And I'm not totally sure I support it in its present form with 3H. As we've seen statewide with the LECLA bill and Fahey's present bill on direct carbon capture, some of our existing businesses would love to use this broad language to, under the guise of green, because green in this case is broad, to say, hey, we're lowering our carbon emissions or we're improving carbon in this county. But the means of doing so would be doing things like burning solid waste and burning tires, something that this county, and when I first got on board here, my first action with Bill was to work against that, try to protect our air. So I would really like to see us tighten that up a little bit and make sure that some of our existing companies, I don't want to block these ones you guys are talking about, the Plug Power and some of these wind companies that are coming in, that's great. But the economic development project, I've seen proposals already on the table from some of our existing businesses that will use that as a way to looking at definitions here for job growth or job retention or business growth. And to accomplish those means, they're talking about burning solid waste, tires, and a variety of other construction and demolition debris as well. And if that's going to be part of what's thrown in with all the good stuff, then I'm going to have a hard time supporting it. So I just want to put that out there and something hopefully we can clean up.
Just one, go ahead.
I was just going to say that what Matt is talking about is a term called greenwashing. Mm-hmm. That we should recognize that it's there, and I think Matt's got a good point. We want to be careful about how we define things.
One
Bill,
quick.
what's greenwashing?
What's that?
What's greenwashing? Is that what you said? Washing?
Greenwashing it's an approach that many companies take to try to make themselves, often it's a marketing strategy, to make themselves look green when they're not actually. And one of the ramifications of this is the kind of thing that Matt was just alluding to, where companies are arguing to do things that are primarily being driven to reduce costs, and it's not necessarily providing any kind of a public benefit or a green benefit. But they try to say, well, it's doing this or that, which is considered, quote, green generally. So,
Or sometimes, Bill, if I could, a minimal green benefit on one hand, but with a very negative environmental impact on the other hand. So they ignore the negative environmental impact to say, hey, we reduced 2% over here, but we just put all these chemicals in the air on the other hand, and that part gets ignored.
yeah, and that's a good point. Often what you have is you have a situation where sort of like there's a little bit of truth in it. You are getting some of a certain type of a benefit, but then you're not looking at the whole picture, and that's often where the greenwashing does come in. Kevin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Mr. Chairman, that we will be putting together a plan at the beginning of the year, for you to take a look at. And usually you can't provide for every possible scenario in the local law, but in the plan that we do, we can make accommodation for things like this to avoid those kind of scenarios where people try to pervert the intent of the law. We could even do something like every project should have a green impact statement that goes along with it to make sure that it is truly meeting the intent of the local law. But in my opinion, we know pretty much who the guys are out there that are really committed to green technology for the right reasons. Companies like Plug Power and some of these Northern European offshore wind companies that we're dealing with at the Port of Albany and the Port of Queens. But I get the message loud and clear.
Yeah. One thing I will add here, Kevin, is the SEC right now is coming up with guidelines for all kinds of businesses that, I will say primarily large businesses that are making big financial transactions, and they're looking at guidelines for evaluating the greenhouse gas impact of those decisions, of the business decisions. So what we see in the business world, and that's only one example I can give others, where businesses are starting through their environmental safety and health arms, looking at how do we quantify the benefits of our investments in terms of greenhouse gas reduction. So, there are, over the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of models out there for how to try to evaluate these things. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's clear the intent here is just to, how do we get greener, which I think has unanimous support. But it is pretty vague about how we get there. I guess we have to wait to see what the plan is. Because one of my concerns is, Kevin's going to meet with the budget commissioner. So what kind of money are we talking here, number one? And more specifically, what might we be doing? I know you haven't made the plan yet, but I'm curious about those questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well,
Mark,
go ahead, Kevin.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I'd have to defer to Dave Riley and whatever those negotiations are at the beginning of the year between the county executive and chairman, the legislative leaders. I don't have a preconceived amount. I mean, the amount of money put to this will determine the beneficial outcome of what we do here. So to do something meaningful here, is going to inure to the benefit of the people of Albany County. So, but I don't have a preconceived notion of how much that should be. I think that's up to the folks controlling the purse strings.
Yeah, and Kevin,
us.
to that point, anything that goes along like that that's in the budget is going to have to get passed by the legislature as well. So it'll be an open number. It's not like it's going to be buried somewhere.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not overly onerous to people who are trying to do a reasonable job. And sometimes regulations in the environmental area can be overly onerous to folks that are just trying to make a living. So I just hope there's a balance between the mutual goal of improving the environment and also not being overly harmful to hardworking businesses.
I don't think we're involved in I don't think we're really considering any regulation here.
Well, that's what I want to see more specifics about, Bill. I think that's what we're all waiting for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what we were just discussing about the SEC guidelines and some things like this are certain documentation to show that you're green, and also, that documentation can address the kind of issue that Matt raised of greenwashing. But I don't view that as regulation. That's more like if you really want to get the stamp of greenness from Albany County, you just have to document a little bit about what you're doing and why it's green.
Well, paperwork is money. That costs money.
Yeah.
But I just want the paperwork to be sensible too. I just know from applying for state, jobs and stuff, it's like 75-page applications. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. And I can assure you that there aren't many HVAC contractors who are going to want to fill out a 75-page application. So I can say that from personal
Yeah,
experience.
I just think we might make it sensible and keep it simple, and then I think we're on the right path.
Yeah. Ferraro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And basically, just to better understand this bill, it does not necessarily do anything at this point, really. And what it does is, because I'm reading through the bill, I read through the bill, and what it does is basically giving authorization for somebody in the county, in this case, Kevin O'Connor, to go ahead with proposing plans towards making Albany County greener. That is all this does, correct? Like giving like an authorization for this to happen. Is
It's
that
establishing the legal framework for us to go down that path, correct?
Okay, great. Thank
you. Kevin, that, Bararo's question does raise it. One question I wanted to just put out there for you is, does this legal framework, and as you said earlier, I think even before the meeting began, you and I were speaking, and you said how this is going to put Albany County out in front of just about every other county in the country. Does this also help us in terms of attracting perhaps federal and state grant monies to move this, to move this effort forward within the county?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. What we'll be able to do with this is identify, companies, again, like Plug Power and our offshore wind companies, and help finance them and offer incentives for them to locate in Albany County, and use, leverage that against federal and state dollars. Let's remember the Plug Power project that's going out to Vista Technology Park. It's going to create over 1,600 brand new jobs, high-paying technology jobs. We made a somewhat modest investment in this company, which was matched by the state of New York with a $45 million wage credit. So this type of financing and these type of programs can leverage huge amounts of federal and state funding as a result. Yeah.
And I actually hope we can start to go after supply chain players as well. That's really what we need to be doing, both for Plug and wind in general, but in other areas as well. So with that,
Bill, I have one follow-up if I could.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, Luke and I, to that point, Luke and I are going to be down in Atlantic City at the end of April, talking to offshore wind at an offshore wind conference, talking to the suppliers and trying to get them to consider Albany County as a location, given the activity at the ports of Albany and Queens. So, with any luck, we'll be able to drum up some demand, and a program like the Stage Act will help, put that kind of initiative over the top.
Where did you say you were going?
Atlantic City. It's called the IPF conference. Luke, what does IPF stand for again? I forget.
International Partnering Forum. So it's it moves around, but it's the premier offshore wind industry business attraction event, really on an international scale.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, just to follow up. So to Bararo's point, and so that we all understand that we're saying what we're moving forward here, if I'm correct, in 4E in this law, it talks about that by January, Kevin, you'll have the stage plan ready. And that then, if I'm correct, if I'm reading it correctly, then the legislature gets to approve that stage plan before it would go into effect, correct?
That is
So we'd
correct.
have, all right, so we'd have a chance still to weigh in the meantime, and even at that point, if there was something that was bothersome.
Absolutely. I think, listen, the best way for us to proceed along this stuff is being completely transparent with one another and making sure that we're all on the exact same page on this stuff. I think, again, I hate to keep going back to this, but the offshore wind and plug power, the reason why we've been so successful there is that it has been universally supported by everybody, our local governments, our unions, elected officials, this is only going to be as good as the cooperation that we have from all of you, from our local government partners, our economic development players around the county. And I think that's one of the strengths that we have in Albany County so far, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I suspect you're going to get good cooperation from the town of Bethlehem. But actually, for everyone to understand, both Plug and the wind farm activities have a stake in Bethlehem now in different parts of the town. But really, this could potentially be massive all over the region. I could see manufacturing settling into Green Island because of the cheap electricity there. All kinds of things could come out of this across the county, the region, really. But let's make as much of it as possible in the county. So I guess at this point, oh yes, Ferraro, another question?
Oh, no, not a question. Rebecca, please add me as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
All right. Anyone
Chairman, can I
else
just
on the
ask-
committee want to be a co-sponsor?
Yes, I do. Merton Simpson wants to be a co-sponsor.
Yeah, I'll be a co-sponsor. Anyone else?
I'll co-sponsor as well.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, quick question. Do we envision maybe using some American Rescue Plan money for these green initiatives?
I'm sorry, wait, were you asking, would we?
No, do we envision using any American Rescue Plan money for these green initiatives that are coming up?
Luke, do you want to address that?
I think that we're obviously setting up the framework now for how that, the ARPA process is going to work. I think there are certain categories that this would definitely fall under. I just can't speak for what decisions are going to be made.
Too early to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, but yeah, that's a good point though, Mark. I mean, we should keep that on the radar.
Because that money, we're getting it this year, but you have the next few years to spend it. So, that could be available if we so chose. So I guess it's, as Chairman Joyce says, it's too early to tell. Thank you.
I think it's obviously too early, particularly for the small business support. There are criteria that would allow for that, but that this is all subject to the work that's going on now around how that funding is going to be used.
Okay.
I would argue one way to use that money is to green up our own operations, which is probably not going to be the focus of stage, but making our own facilities more efficient and putting in electrification of our transportation, things like that. Okay, if there's nothing else, shall we take a vote on the public hearing for local law A? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Matt, do I have a second?
I second.
I second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimous. I guess the law itself, we need to table it until after the public hearing. So I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. Does anyone have anything else they want to raise?
Just want to say thank you and thank Kevin and Luke and the entire team here for the work that they're doing, and they will do.
Yeah. So now, do I understand that the entire committee now a co-sponsor, or did we not get everyone?
I didn't go on.
We'll get them
Okay.
eventually.
Go on yet.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to wait a little bit longer to see how things start to flush out.
Okay.
That's why I'm not jumping on at the moment. Certainly extremely very interested in it. I'm hoping that Kevin's gonna come back and keep us updated and educated too, for some of us that might not be as educated on as you are, Chairman.
Well, I do, one point I do want to stress that I did bring up, but I just want to reiterate it so we all understand. The potential here for leveraging stage to get more state and federal and even private foundation money is huge. From one of my other hats, I've seen things going on in Ithaca having to do with building electrification, where Tompkins County has attracted massive private investment into converting buildings from oil and gas to heat pumps. And ultimately, that's really what we want to accomplish. There's just a real leverage play here that we shouldn't lose sight of. All right. If there is nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
That was Frank, I think. I didn't see your hand go up, Frank. And
Yeah,
Matt
you're not gonna
seconded.
either.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right.